What's up, Internet? It is that time of year, once again, the time where we rejoice for all the amazing, tacular games that came out this year. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is basically going to be the year of the indie game, because I'm looking at my list right now and there's like maybe 2 really big names on here that I played this year. Like, the AAA industry is just crap, isn't it? Like, just seriously. Gotta rely on those indies to make the weird, interesting, or really spectacular games. And, you know, I'm really genuinely having trouble just limiting it to 10 plus some honorable mentions. I mean, look at this. This is Spark the Electric Jester. It is delightful. It's Kirby meets Sonic meets a little bit of Mega Man. And its sequel looks really cool too. This might actually be on the Game of the Year list next year if things shake up, because I'm literally recording this just after playing this for the first time. Absolute awesome game. Call that a bonus, I guess. Anyway, before we get into the Game of the Year list, of course, we have to go through the honorable mentions. I was going to start with my first honorable mention being Crosscode, because Crosscode was this amazing, like, offline MMO style sprite-based kind of Terranigma meets Yoshi's Island style game. It was really, really damn cool. And it had this amazing open world with all these secret paths and like this really cool parkour system that made you have to like actively think about the terrain to figure out how to get around and find all these secrets and stuff. It was an absolute blast to play. But as I'm saying this right now, and I'm making this command decision as I record this, I can't include Crosscode, because I still haven't finished it for one specific reason. I absolutely freaking hate the dungeon design in this game. Like, the dungeons in this game are like the antithesis of everything else that the game is about. The game was like this huge open world MMO where you run around parkouring, fighting monsters, trying to find angles with your like egg throw gun or whatever. It was a really cool game about exploration, planning, and execution. The dungeons are, well, they're very thin, small, linear experiences with very bland puzzles that just frustrate me. They go on for way, way, way too long, and I'm seeing now that there's new DLC that's advertising even longer dungeons. No, guys, you're doing it backwards. You have to go hard the other way. Find a way to take them out, because the dungeons are the worst part about this game. Crosscode, great, but those dungeons really, really make it a slog. So I'm not giving that an honorable mention, and instead I'm going to give that spot to a demo I played very early on this year, Shrine's Legacy. And because it's a demo, when the full game comes out, I can put that on my Game of the Year list that year. I'm very excited about that. This is also, similarly to Crosscode, it is a game based around Terranigma, but it's trying to tell its own interesting, unique story about the legacy of the Shrine family. And, trying to stop the evil Achlor. This game is cool. It's been forever since I played it, but damn was this game special to me. I love this demo, and I think it's still available. You should go play it, but it's like a 4-hour experience, really well made, didn't find any bugs, and it was just a great action RPG experience with some fun level design, some really fun dungeons that didn't take forever Crosscode, and it felt like it had a really great special story that was trying to do something completely its own. I like this game. I think it's a very special game, so much so that I actually went out and bought a very, like, rare, expensive, limited print RPG compendium. Like, I bought a rare version of it that cost like an extra $100 that I really couldn't afford, just because it came with a thumb drive with the demo of this game that I already own on it, just because I wanted to say I owned a physical piece of this game. It's very special, and it was made by like 2 guys, and every time I pop onto Twitter, I see their updates and I see them doing more and more stuff with it, and I keep seeing this game looking more and more impressive, and I can't wait to see how the final product shapes out. And it's a demo, so like, go play it. It's free. You should do it because it's good, and I love you. Anyway, next honorable mention is Jazz Punk. I had this on my PS4 forever, and I just never played it. It is a bizarre first-person, almost sort of like old-school PC adventure game based around bizarre, off-the-wall humor and just random non-sequiturs, and it's just magical. And if that wasn't enough, it has a completely legit, awesome retro-style arena shooter in it as just like a bonus thing. And I honestly have and still am considering just reviewing that on its own, because Wedding Cake the Shooter is just so damn good. Jazz Punk, it's a great, bizarre couple hours of your life taken away, but it's a fun story and just a bunch of weird, random, wacky jokes. And I'm not really about internet humor or memes or anything, but this game, something about it just hit me quite well. It has sort of like a 50s spy theme, meets like a cyberpunk sort of thing. It's very anachronistic and weird, but it's very, very special. And if you like weird humor, and if you like just weird, interesting titles, Jazzpunk might be for you. My final honorable mention goes to Baba Is You, a puzzle game based around basically trying to teach you programming logic. Biggest issue I had with this game is that I'm terrible with puzzles, so I've had a lot of trouble getting through this game, but I have to appreciate a game that works basically around teaching people how to program stuff, how different states exist and flags and stuff. I love that idea. You play as Baba, this sheep. As the title says, Baba is you, except sometimes Baba isn't you, sometimes Rock is you, sometimes Key is you, sometimes Baba is End or Baba is Win, and it does nothing but it makes him sparkles, so that's special. It's a very interesting puzzle game that's all about trying to teach you programming logic, and I think that's really, really quite cool. I think this is a cool game to get people into programming logic, as well as, you know, just being a really, really quite brilliant puzzle game. And because it's all about swapping states and the logic of certain objects in the game, it feels like the game is constantly remaking the wheel with every stage, with new logic that you have to kind of throw out for the next one, just to figure out, okay, what's the next rule I have to work with? In fact, the game sometimes repeats stages, but with different rules and sets, so that you have to kind of like completely forget what you've been told, just in order to move on and actually try and tackle the logic of a next stage. That's freaking brilliant, but it's a puzzle game and I'm terrible at them. But if you like puzzle games or this looks cool, absolutely give it a shot, because there's a lot of content in this game and some of these puzzles are really, really tough. But Baba Is You is an absolute masterclass in puzzle design. Anyway, on to the list proper with number 10. Number 10, we have Maneater. This reminds me of a movie. I can't think of what it is right off. Damn. It's really famous. You know the one. You're probably gonna get before I do. I think Steven Spielberg directed it. It was what was it? Duel. It reminds me exactly of Duel, but with a shark. That's a really cool idea for a movie. I might have to pitch that to someone. But this is the story of a baby shark pup basically having to fight a shark hunter and become the apex shark hunter shark to get revenge for his mother. All by destroying all the apex predators and evolving and creating new different types of mutations in itself to greater affect its ability to hunt and cause mass panic. Because let's just be honest, you're not actually playing this for the story, you're doing it to terrorize people on the beach, aren't you? I mean, I was. And seriously, that's okay. That's the fact that the game is literally all about just doing dumb stuff like that and just not caring about the plot, just do whatever. I love that. It's very much aware of how kind of dumb and one-note and goofy it is. But let me tell you, I started this game very early on in the year, and I remember my entire experience with it. I started at 8 p.m., and I didn't put it down till I was 100% done, 10 a.m. the next day. It's not a long game, but in that regard it also doesn't overstay its welcome. It just has a very fun, dumb concept, and it just goes crazy with it. Also, side note, can we just get Chris Parnell to do every wildlife documentary from here on out, just off the cuff? Like, can we do that? Can he be the next David Attenborough? Because playing this game with his narration was just delightful and amazing, and I just wanted to keep playing it just to hear all the fun, goofy things he would say. It's great. I quite liked the character of the narrator, played by Chris Parnell, who's just like this insane documentarian who's getting pushed around more and more by these like shark hunters, and now I just want him to be in every wildlife documentary ever because it was way too good to just be a one-off thing. It's not perfect, the lock-on system is a bit garbage, and honestly I wish there was just more stuff to do and more evolutions you can get, but I will say it's a fun, goofy time that is like the natural evolution of those 3D Echo the Dolphin games from back in the day, you know? Now you're a shark, go crazy with it. Actually, there was already a game that was based around something like that as well. I think it was based on a movie too. What was that? That'll come to me. Whatever. Might have also been made by Steven Spielberg. That's probably nowhere near as good as Duel anyway. Anyway, I gotta get back to pitching that shark movie idea. Anyway, let's swim on over to number 9. Fazzanido. Not Faxanadu. I know it sounds probably better and more correct to call it Faxanadu, but it is a portmanteau of Famicom and Xanadu. Story features your character returning from a long journey, like you're already done your adventure, but now you've got a new adventure, and the giant world tree behind your town is just slowly losing energy, so now you have to climb it and see what's going on. It's pretty cool, and I have to admit the opening cutscene to this game was genuinely quite surprising for the NES. This is a very early side-scrolling RPG hack-and-slash sort of adventure game by Falcom, a company that basically pioneered and invented my entire favorite genre of action RPGs. So it's really depressing I haven't played very many of their games, but I'm working on it. Last year it was Trails of Cold Steel, this year it's Fazzanido, and I gotta say, it's a really fun Famicom/NES classic. I think anyone who likes RPGs and adventure games should get a hold of this. It does have some weirdness with it early on, however, starting you off with basically no way to defend yourself and having to go through like 3 rooms of enemies before you can actually, get money to buy a weapon. It's very, very weird, but there are some really cool features about it. Very early on, you can find this shop that has like this ridiculous equipment that's super expensive, and you can just grind and get it, and it's very, very good equipment if you want to do it, but it will take a lot of time. And I kind of appreciate that they let you get some OP stuff very early on if you're willing to put in the legwork for it. That's very, very cool. It does feel very, very of its time. It is a little bit clunky, but I have to say, if you like RPGs or adventure games, I would say this is kind of like the game that Adventure of Link was trying to be and failed miserably at. I dislike Adventure of Link intensely, but Fazzanido, this is basically what that game was trying to be, except good, I think. And, it's more Falcom classics. I think this is a bit of an unknown on the Famicom. I don't think it's as well regarded as the Zeldas or the Marios or anything else, but, there's a reason why my top 10 favorite NES games don't contain stuff like Mario and Zelda. It's because there is a lot of genuinely better stuff out there, or at least more interesting stuff for me, if you're willing to go and look for it. And this is just another example of one of those really cool gems that I think everyone who likes RPGs and adventure games should get. And the best thing of all, it's actually not very expensive to find. It's readily available, and I think it would be an excellent addition to basically any NES collection. I was thoroughly impressed with this game in pretty much all regards. Visually, it's quite good. Gameplay-wise, it's pretty fun. It's a little bit clunky and clumsy, and it makes some weird choices early on, but overall, I think this is a really fun game to pick up and play. Also, it's an NES game that existed before Nintendo, shored up their censorship policies, so it does some stuff you wouldn't really see on a Nintendo game after. Number 8, and one of the few big names on this list, we have a game we spent 20 goddamn years waiting for, new Pokemon Snap. Similarly to the original Pokemon Snap, a game that we had been begging for a sequel for 2 decades, new Pokemon Snap exists on a system with no less than 6 Pokemon games, and similarly to the original, which had no less than 5 other competitors on that system, the weird photography thing is still the best Pokemon thing on the system. New Pokemon Snap takes basically everything we loved about the original Pokemon Snap and gives us more and better and flashier looking and updated for modern stuff, because, it would be weird if this looked like an N64 game. Although, that would be kind of cool too, honestly. Maybe they could put it in as a filter or something. Who knows? This game has a lot of levels and a lot of different Pokemon, and what's really cool is that every level has multiple routes, secret paths, as well as different instances that you can take those paths in. For example, the first level has 4 different instances depending on your mastery of that level. And then there's alternate paths you can take while on those instances to see different stuff at different times of day. Every stage has 6 or 7 different ways you could play it, just depending on your instance as well as the path you pick. And there's always something new to see every time you go back in, so mastering these stages is actually encouraged. It's really quite cool to see every time I hop in something slightly different I didn't see before. Oh hey, those Bidoofs are finally finished building that dam and I can walk around it and see some different stuff. There's a lot of really cool stuff in new Pokemon Snap, and there's not really much I can complain about. Although I do have 2 big complaints. One, similar to the original, this game doesn't understand proper composition whatsoever, so, rule of thirds game. Rule of thirds. If you're gonna be a game about photography, teach people some basic photography composition skills, please. The second problem I had was that this game gives you lots of randomized tasks to go out and get certain photos in certain situations, which is great, but their requirements are unbelievably stringent, and I swear I've gotten these completed several times and submitted the photos, and they just don't count for some reason. I don't know why that is. It's a small thing, so it doesn't really bug me all that much, but because it's like a completion and it unlocks stuff thing, it's still really obnoxious to see that you got the perfect shot, but it just doesn't count for some reason. The third biggest issue I have with this game is it has an online photo album you can submit your own photos to, which is great, but you're limited to 6. And I don't want to play Sophie's Choice every single time I go out on a safari, because I really desperately want to keep that first shot of a Leafeon I took on the first time I played this game, because it's still the best goddamn photo of a Leafeon ever. Fight me. Seriously, I just want more slots on my online photo album. And my last really big problem with this game, I just want more of it. Can we get, like, a sequel, like, right now, please? I don't want to wait another 20 years until I'm 50 to play another Pokemon Snap. This game was amazing, and I just want more now. Give me more now, please. Pokemon Snap, it's good, and it's might be one of the best Switch exclusive games I've played, honestly. I don't play my Switch for much, really, but Pokemon Snap had me coming back multiple times this year, and even now, I'm just raring to go back in and take some photos. I love this game, and it was absolutely excellently done, and it is the sequel Pokemon Snap absolutely deserved, and now I just want more and more and more. Give me more, and don't make me wait 20 more years for it, please. It was too good. Number 7 is Anachronics, and you know, I'm not much of a PC guy. I've said this numerous times, but my hands can't really mouse and keyboard so well because I've got motor skill issues. But I had always told myself I was only ever going to review one PC game. If I ever did it, there was one specific PC game I wanted to review. And thanks to Shrine's Legacy opening the floodgates to PC game reviews now, I have got like 9 more in the pipeline I have to work on. So thanks, guys. You ruined my plans! As a side note, I love you and please don't stop. I need all the support I can get. Thank you, and I love you. You know, I did have one specific PC game I always wanted to review, and I just haven't done it yet. But because I haven't, I got to play Anachronics, which is an amazing little game I had never heard of by Ion Storm of all things, which means I can give them a second point for something good they did, because John Romero's Daikatana needs something to balance it out, because I'm still bitter about that game and its terrible ad campaign. But Anachronics is a really quite special game, and even during my review I think I had a lot of trouble articulating why, but I think it's a very cool game that sets up an amazing world. The opening shot of the titular Anachronics, this mechanical planet where you see it constantly shifting and moving, from the moment I saw that in its opening shot, I was just like, whoa, this is something special. I knew from that opening shot that I was in for something special, and I absolutely was. You got like this film noir detective style cyberpunk fantasy with a bunch of different characters that feel like they were written from like different genres and mindsets and walks of life. The writing in this game is amazing, and the combination of trying to make it an RPG and point and click adventure doesn't work entirely. I still say you could probably axe all the RPG from this game and it would be better for it, because the combat really does slow it down. But the adventure and the story and the writing, this game is amazing. I would definitely love to see a sequel to this, especially because it ends on a cliffhanger, or, you know, see it turned into a movie, except movies based on games are always terrible, or even just a book. The fact is, Anachronics has an amazing world and amazing characters, and I would love to continue to experience more of this. Unfortunately, Steam kind of freaked out on my computer and I had to lose all my save data for all my Steam games ever. So I'm back to square one on this. But, you know, I get to play it again, and I had a blast with it. Even though it is a little bit janky, a little bit wonky, and people complain that I, like, cropped the video weird. I didn't crop the video at all, actually. This is how it just natively displays on my computer. I don't know what that's about, but yeah, it probably is a problem because it does give me a little bit of a headache, just like the FOV that it natively is displaying at for some reason. But again, that's because old game, probably playing on new computer more than anything. But I have to say, this is an amazing PC adventure game, and I have to say it would easily stand as being in my top 5 favorite PC games of all time. And in a sense, I'm unbelievably thankful I still haven't talked about my favorite PC game, because had I done that, I would not have been able to play Anachronics. and I wouldn't have been able to add this special little game to a list of favorites of my own. This is really something quite special, with some amazing writing and an amazing setting and an amazing world. And if you go in for that sort of thing, if you love the cyberpunk and like the fantasy and the film noir and all that, grab this game. It is an absolute classic. And hey, it's another thing Ion Storm did that was good. That's worth noting. Although, to be fair, there was like 2 Ion Storms. It's a whole big thing, trust me on that. But the broad scale, it's something they did that wasn't John Romero's Daikatana, and it was good. And so was Deus Ex. And that's probably it. But still, good on you, Anachronics. You are a classic, and more people need to play because you are awesome. And truly something special. Number 6 is Valorware. Not a game, but a company. See, earlier this year I played a little game called Throne Quest Deluxe. It was like this little cheapo game on the Switch eShop. I think I spent like $1 on, if that. And what I got was this like amazing top-down twin-stick shooter version of Diablo that ate 2 weeks of my life. Well, fast forward to the summer, and I played another game that I remarked looked pretty similar to Throne Quest called Ninth Dawn 3. Well, it turns out it was made by the same company, and it was awesome too. It was like this huge open world RPG adventure with an absurd amount of like classes and ways to specialize your character. It was an amazing amount of detail in these 2 games put in by this one company, and if nothing else, these games are like the antithesis of Elemental Knights are and other terrible things like Dungeon Village. It's actually a pretty good phone game on consoles that will eat up your life. They're not perfect, however. They both have a weird balance issue with the final stages in each requiring like just absurd amounts of luck to get through. I think in Throne Quest's case, it was designed as a, like, after the game was released, extra dungeon, but Ninth Dawn, I don't know what it's all about, but either way, it requires you to basically fight a giant horde of enemies rushing you all at once, hoping you kind of get like a heal from killing X number of enemies and leveling. It's really badly balanced compared to the rest of the game and just kind of weird. As well, Ninth Dawn has the issue of, while it does have an absurd amount of different abilities to specialize your character in, both combat and non-combat roles, unfortunately getting into any of them early on is very difficult because it's very expensive and you have to train every single one of them up, which requires a lot of grinding and farming early on to just start, which is unfortunate. But they are both amazing games, Throne Quest being this really fun Diablo-style game with zero dialogue. You just walk into town, sell items, move on to the next dungeon, kill everything, pick up loot, and make your ultimate character. And there's a lot of different character types. I ended up playing a lot as a cat, because of course, but it was a great little quest. And Ninth Dawn is awesome because it is such an open game with so many different options for how you want to fight. If you want to be a sword fighter or a mage or a bow guy, I settled on being a summoner, and I ran around with 20 different monsters along with my sidekick character, which you can also completely customize. It's awesome. And there's like this completely extra card game just thrown in, really good card game mind you, that you can just challenge every character in the game to a fight in to get special, exclusive, rare, shiny cards for every character. If you want 100% these games, you're going to be putting in a lot of time is the short version, but it's a blast. And I have to just put special mention to something really cool in the, like, development mentality of Ninth Dawn. See, like I said, I was a summoner, and unfortunately summoners do kind of suck early on because you have to sink an absurd amount of money into food and traps to try and lure monsters in, with no guarantee any of them will work. But about maybe 30% the way through the game, I was wandering around this nondescript cave, and in this just random corner, I see this weird thing that looks like an emaciated shark standing on its tail fin, and it proceeded to immediately one-shot me. It was just ridiculously OP, just like this secret out-of-the-way boss or something. So I knew what I had to do, and I proceeded to spend the better part of like a day trying to capture it, and when I did, it turned around and started destroying monsters significantly higher level than me instantly. The fact that the game will let you do that is awesome, and that's not even the last instance of that, because about halfway through the game, I ran into this like giant castle filled with these skeletons that were very powerful. And there was these skeleton summoners, which could summon monsters that were like twice their level, and were like end game monsters. But they only show up for about 10 seconds, so the key is to avoid them and kill them when their summons disappear. Unless you're me. For you see, I knew what I had to do. I then spent the better part of 2 days buying a metric crap ton of food and traps to try and trap ridiculously OP monsters that would one-shot me that only exist for 10 seconds to try and capture them. And you know what? The game lets you do it. It's like, I don't think it was necessarily intentional, but it feels like the game's saying, well, you went to all the length to get the materials to actually do this, and think about putting up and engineering a scenario where you can capture a monster that's well beyond your abilities. So if you can do that, you've put in the legwork, you keep that monster. And I did. I kept my Vampire Lord, and he served me well until the end of the game. This game just feels like it has so many options for how you can play with your characters and set up the game, and it just feels like it's willing to let you experiment and do absurd things, provided you can actually pull them off. And the fact that it has that sort of laissez-faire, well, you shouldn't have this kind of monster because it's so high level, and it's only supposed to exist for 10 seconds. The fact that it's hands-off and says, okay, if you can do it, you can get it, you know, I have to applaud that. And it requires a greater thinking on the player's part to take advantage of all the different systems that let you do stuff like that in this game. Seriously, Ninth Dawn 3, if I have to recommend one of their games, and not both, and I'm recommending their company in general because they made mobile phone games on consoles that were good, like punching well above their weight class good. Ninth Dawn 3 I think is way better than Throne Quest, but they're both amazing, and I just honestly want to buy all their games on all my consoles now because they deserve all the money ever, and I want to play another Ninth Dawn game because it was a lot of fun. Good job, Valorware. Good job. Number 5 is a game that just kind of came out of nowhere. It just showed up on the eShop one day, and, you know, I just took a gamble on it because it looked interesting. I'm talking about Eastward. This game is kind of like a natural evolution of the old school Goof Troop game. It is a top-down adventure game using items to navigate environments and puzzles, but it utilizes 2 separate characters asymmetrically. Both your 2 characters of Sam and John have completely different movesets and abilities, and you need both interacting with puzzles at different times. It's sort of like those old school adventure games that would drop like 2 party members on different sides of a cave, and they need to solve puzzles on one side to open up a door for the other side so that the 2 can eventually meet again. It's like that, but the whole game. It also features some of the most amazing sprite art I've seen this year, I think rivaled only by Crosscode. Seriously, it's a shame I couldn't give Crosscode that honorable mention, but its dungeon sucked. But the dungeons here are awesome. Your character abilities are great. The monster designs are really fun. The environmental designs are fantastic. And I'm just going to be flat out honest with you. 4 hours into this game, I had only played an actual hour of it, because the remaining 3 hours of this game, I was playing an included knockoff Dragon Quest clone they just added in that is ridiculously legit on its own merits. Seriously, the knockoff Dragon Quest in this game, it could be its own game, basically. And I kind of love that it's just there if you want to play it, but you pretty much don't ever actually have to play it. But if you want to play knockoff Dragon Quest, and it's really good knockoff Dragon Quest, you can. And there's just an insane amount of replayability here. And that's not even talking about the really cool story going on in the actual game itself. The game is just a really incredibly fun, interesting adventure set up with a really cool setting of a sort of post-apocalyptic world with like this weird nonsense going on that's trying to like threaten all the people in it, and you have to like explore and fight through this like sort of beautiful post-apocalyptia while running into like all these sort of ancient technologies that seem to be like doing evil things that have a connection to one of your protagonists who doesn't know what's going on. This game is really special, and it's the first production of its company. So I'm really hoping they earn all the money in the world, because I want to see a sequel to this, and I want to see what else they can hit me with, because I gotta say, this game was really special, and I think everyone who has an interest in adventure games and interesting storytelling and really cool world building should play Eastward. Number 4. Man, hearing those jams again, that's something special. This is Neo, The World Ends With You, the sequel to what is probably the most influential game of my life, so I'm entirely biased here. And a sequel I never thought I'd actually get to see. 15 years later, we finally got it, and it's quite good, which is surprising to me because this is a game published by Square Enix, and they have a habit of kind of ruining things I have fond memories of from my childhood. This game, though, is awesome. I would say this is probably about as good a sequel as we could have ever gotten, especially after 15 years. And I know that probably doesn't sound like the highest amount of praise ever, but again, it's put out by Square Enix. I wasn't holding my breath too much, but I was gonna get it because I was excited and I'm a nostalgic idiot. This game looks and feels about as much like a 3D World Ends With You as I could have ever hoped for. I think it plays pretty well, although it does have some issues, we'll talk about that, but running around Shibuya once again, I still know the streets like the back of my hand from the original game. I played this game so hard, and I'm jamming out to the soundtrack while I edit this, not gonna lie. It's got some of the best music I've heard this year. Not a perfect game, however, it does have some issues. First and foremost, instead of having 2 characters to, justify it being played on the DS and utilizing every feature, instead you have a team of 5, but every character is just a new slot for an attack, and it doesn't matter who your teammate is, every attack is identical. It's all dependent on what pin you equip them with. Whereas in the original game, every character had their own completely unique movesets. I don't really care for this so much. It means that every character is just homogeneous and completely replaceable in terms of combat. That's not good. I also dislike quite a lot the sort of moving the whole team with one character and just sort of changing out which character you have at once. The combat system, it starts off feeling a little bit confusing, but it's pretty easy to pick up on, aside from the fact that a lot of pins are based on either holding A button down or tapping it and using them interchangeably, which again feels like every attack is a little bit more homogeneous and less unique. I didn't care for that so much. And I think the biggest issue with this game is honestly with its story. The original The World Ends With You had a very important message, at least for me as someone who personally related to it. The whole message was presented right there in the title. The world ends with you. No matter what, and no matter how painful it is, you have to open up yourself to people. You have to stop isolating yourself and try and embrace other people. The world ends with you. Your experiences and your world are shaped entirely by how far you're willing to push your boundaries and how much you're willing to accept other ideas, concepts, and people, and willing to be open to other people, no matter how painful it might be. This game doesn't really have a message. Not really, anyway. I mean, I guess ostensibly the message to this game is, don't be so indecisive, jackass, I guess? And as an incredibly indecisive person, I guess that's supposed to resonate with me, but it just doesn't. And it doesn't help that there's not really much of a character arc for anyone in this game. Protagonist Rindo doesn't have an arc so much as he has a point a moment that's like halfway through the game that's like impactful to him but doesn't really change his character in any meaningful way, and then after the game ends, a point B where he changes things and then he has to go and fight an extra boss because he had a point B. And that's supposed to constitute an arc, I guess. Best friend and loser of tickets and total asshole Fret, frickin' Fret, lost the tickets. His whole character arc is like 2 or 3 cutscenes, people mention that he has like a certain personality trait, and then like later on he talks about why he does, and then says he's gonna change for someone else, and we don't really see it so much. But that's probably the best arc of this game. Third wheel Nagi doesn't even get that. She hops on the exact same cutscene as good old Fred and just says, yeah, I'm just good at reading people. I've played a lot of gacha mobile games, and because of that, I'm good at reading people, and that's supposed to be my arc. Except she already knew that, apparently. And that was apparently a part of her that we never saw, and just we're supposed to accept that. I don't know, I feel like none of the characters really have much of a believable arc or much of an arc whatsoever. I wouldn't say play this game for its message or what it's supposed to make you think about, because it doesn't really do that terribly well. Likewise, this game, and this is a spoiler, features a time travel mechanic that is completely squandered. It's all about turning back time to go to a predetermined place to watch a few text boxes, maybe get into one fight, and then go back to where you were. There's no running around in the past, there's not really any meaningful changes outside of just reading some text boxes and your character saying they're changing stuff. It's a little bit of a shame. Also, for some reason, like literally at the 11th hour in this game, they decided to parade every character from the first game back for pretty much no reason. Like, one character literally just shows up to say, "Hi, I'm an asshole. I was an asshole in the first game. Do you remember that? I'm still an asshole." And then you never see him again. There are some really quizzical things about this game, but it is nice to see some old characters and some familiar faces, and they're still voiced by the original voice actors, I think with one exception, and that's because their voice actress was doubling down on 2 characters in the first game, and they wanted them to sound slightly different, I think. The point is, this game is not perfect. It's flawed, but it's a beautiful 3D game, and while I'm bringing up stuff I hate, the overworld, every area has like a different director-style camera perspective, and some of them have like this weird, gross fisheye lens effect that made me honestly feel like vomiting. Like, it just gave me motion sickness to be in some of those areas. Not great, but this game looks beautiful, and it is probably the truest and best possible sequel we could have ever gotten to The World Ends With You. I think it could be improved in a lot of ways, but the fact that this is good, the fact that it exists, is something I'm honestly thankful for. And hey, everyone's favorite math teacher's back, and that's pretty cool, right? Using math to fight street art designed enemies. I love it. Neo: The World Ends With You is probably the coolest game to come out of the AAA industry this entire past year. It's certainly the best big name game I've played this year, and I'm very thankful I got to play it. I'm going to continue to play it, and I'm certainly going to continue to rock out to the soundtrack because, I mean, the soundtrack is amazing. Shoutouts to Last Call, Breaking Free, Insomnia, Scramble. It takes the original idea of mixing pop with hip-hop and instead gives you a melange of metal and rock mixed with hip-hop, mixed with like the entire eccentric soundtrack from the first game remixed and redone, with the weird exception of, for some reason, there's no Long Dream, which to me was the definitive combat theme of the original game. Also, for some reason, they remixed 3 Minutes Clapping, my favorite song from the first game, but they used the live version, which I don't like so much, so that's not so good. Point is, the game's great, soundtrack's great, and you should play it, or at least rock out to the soundtrack, because it's really good. And this is probably the most notable game that really was made by a big name company, or at least published by it this year. So check this game out if you want a different style of RPG. Just maybe don't play it for a greater message, because unless I missed the point, and it's entirely possible, I guess, it doesn't say as much as I think the first game did, and it says it kind of badly. Number 3, Zero Ranger. This is quite possibly the coolest shmup I've ever played that wasn't made by Cave, because I don't think you're topping Mushihime-sama Futari anytime soon. But if you've ever had an interest in shmups, be it standard, bullet hell, whatever, get this game, because it is the most approachable shmup you will ever find. It is a great game with lots of customization. Every time you fight a boss, you get a new choice for a power-up with your character, 2 different ships, transformations, and just a metric crap ton of fun. Every time you die, all your points, score, and whatever you've done in this game gets cumulatively added up and gives you more total continues for your next playthrough. So even if you're not very good and dying instantly on the first level, you're still going to be making progress that carries through and puts you further away. There's not really much about this game I can complain with, except that this game does ask you to put your skills to the ultimate test in a way that's really kind of poorly explained, and you get punished if you mess up, and that's not good. That's the one big issue this game has. But otherwise, it's amazing. It has a metric crap ton of content. All it really needs is the 3rd ship that you only get teased at one point to play as, and that's way too good not to be part of the game. Like, make that an extra. I don't care if it doesn't make logical sense to the game. It was too good not to have more of that. You have a bunch of different levels. You have 2 different playthroughs, technically 4, and each one of them has slightly different events to each path, which means that every playthrough is going to be slightly different. Got a pretty interesting story, some intense gameplay, some fun references here and there, and just an absolute blast to play as, all to an amazing soundtrack. Zero Ranger is an absolute must-have if you have any passing interest in shmups, because even if you're not that interested in them, even if you're not very good at them, this one will help you get better. This one will let you approach them better. And I've never seen a shmup designed to really teach people and encourage people to play more shmups if they're not good at it. Because every single step of this game is trying to reward you and trying to entice you to play more. And I think it does it masterfully. I struggle to think of a better shmup on Steam. I can only think of one that maybe comes close. and even then this one is just executed so much better. And it's incredibly stylish. I am begging you, if you have any interest in shmups, give Zero Ranger a shot, because it is an absolute insane good time, and I just want to play more of this. And get the version with the soundtrack. I know it'll cost a little bit more, but trust me, that soundtrack, totally worth it. I love Zero Ranger, and I would easily put this on a list of my favorite shmups of all time. This game is an absolute must-own. Number 2 is Monster Sanctuary. You got your Metroid in my Pokemon game. You got your Pokemon in my Metroid game. And it turns out they were best friends. Seriously, it is pretty hard for a game to completely dominate my every waking thought. I play so many of the damn things just for research for this channel. So when a game basically becomes the only thing I want to think about and do for any period of time, that's impressive. The last game I can think of that did that was like Gundam Breaker 3, which was a couple of years ago now. But Monster Sanctuary did just that. This game ate a total of 2 weeks of my life, where pretty much every waking moment my thoughts were all about team composition, builds, and how different abilities would synergize with one another. And man, it was a great game. Totally a blast to explore, and just building up your team was great. You start off with a pick of one of 4 monsters, and you're told to just go and figure it out. And while you're doing it, you're platforming around, finding secrets and gaining new abilities every time you get a new monster added to your roster. I think the most notable moment of this game was honestly probably about 80% the way through the game, where I'm about to go through this door to a new area, only to have my character's boss stop me and say, "Hey, I know you want to continue with the plot. I know you want to go to this like secret hellscape area, but before you do that, I want you to understand what proper team synergy looks like." Now, me being Mr. Big Shot, who knows exactly what he's doing with a giant crit-style build team, decide to laugh at him and say, "Oh, you're on," and proceed to have my entire team of 6 wiped out in 3 turns. And that was quite an eye-opener, I have to admit. And from that moment, I was just building and building and building until I came up with like this ultimate bleed designed team. A team that is designed entirely around building up stacks of small incremental damage that's supposed to go away, except I built it so it didn't go away. And so that every turn, the enemies were taking exponentially more and more and more damage, to the point where you could basically take out an entire super boss's health bar in 1 turn, if you set it up properly. Yeah, this game kind of gets ridiculous when you really put a lot of thought into your team build and their equipment and their special abilities. And what's really cool is their equipment and their special abilities in every single level in their customizable skill tree that you can work out, they all feel like significant tactical upgrades. It's pretty rare for a game to have a feeling that every single level is giving you a significant tactical boost to your character that kind of completely changes the game. But this game does it, and it was gripping to just try and level my character little bit by little bit, getting 1 new extra ability here, 1 new extra ability there. Oh hey, my bleed isn't disappearing anymore and you're taking more damage every turn. Oh hey, look at that, I now have like a 90% chance to crit. And oh, my crits are doing a lot more damage, and now you're freezing to death because now you can't attack because frost damage. This game is kind of ridiculous like that, and honestly, the only things I could really complain about are it could be a lot longer, but it is an indie title, and also, can we just have a sequel like now that's like 500 times bigger with more monsters? Because seriously, there needs to be more of that. Only other thing I can think of maybe is, while there is an evolution system in this game, only like 12 monsters in the entire game evolve, which kind of sucks. It very much limits the evolution possibilities in this game, although I did quite like that each evolution was kind of a distinct monster from its pre-evolved form, so if you were building certain strategies, it wasn't necessarily the best idea to evolve their monster. Early on I had this poison guy that you could evolve, and he gets stronger, but then he loses a lot of the debuff potential that I liked him for, so I ended up not evolving him, at least initially. There is an insane amount of thought and strategy put into team composition and how you work out your monsters in this game, And I am just talking about like the very basic bare bones RPG aspect, and not how it's also a really fun platformer with great puzzle solving mechanics that are integral to capturing new monsters. Every monster has a different environmental ability that lets you explore different areas, which is really, really cool. I think that Monster Sanctuary is an amazing game, and it captured my attention pretty much like no other game had this year. And I just want a lot more, like, right now, because this game was way too good. Seriously, if you see Monster Sanctuary and you like monster catching and raising RPGs, this one is an absolute must-own. Now we move on to my number one top game of 2021. This is, of course, a game on my favorite console of all time. You know what it is, the legendary Sega Saturn. We are, of course, talking about Bulk Slash. I'm sorry, I think when Jetwolf sent this to me, he kind of opened Pandora's box a little bit. It's a mech game. It's an arcadey mech game. It's an arcadey mech game on the Saturn, and it kind of blows every other mech game I've played on the system out of the water. Bear in mind, I also own all 9 Gundam games on the Saturn. So, yeah, it's not like it doesn't have competition. Like, I like those Gundam Blue Destiny games, but this one, I think it's better in a lot of ways. Like, it has about as many levels as all 3 Blue Destiny games combined, and it feels a lot grander in scale. I quite like this game a lot. While you could, in a broad sense, say that every single level is the same, where it's either destroy X number of things or collect X number of things and then fight a boss, I think that's kind of missing the point. You're a transforming mech with Macross-style missile barrages, a multitude of weapons to play around with, as well as a menagerie of collectible waifus that will help you to ultimately pilot your mech better by telling you exactly where you go to get your special mission objectives for the day. And each one is completely different, and they come from different walks of life, have different personalities, and there's always going to be one that suits you quite perfectly. I quite like the haughty princess type, but I'm also a big fan of basically Lady Joseph Joestar with all the swearing and the incredible English. No, wait, that actually also happened too, so you know, basically just Joseph Joestar. And how can I forget the career thief? She's amazing. Basically, every single one of the characters you deal with in this game, even if they are basically just background filigree to give you a little bit more of a thing to listen to while pointing you in the right direction, they're kind of lovable, and I like this game a lot. Every single level, despite in a very broad sense having kind of the same objective of either collecting or destroying X number of things, every level feels distinct and different, both in terms of design as well as in terms of setting and world building. And why have we not seen a sequel to Bulk Slash? Seriously, this game is amazing, and unfortunately, the only thing I can think of that makes me not want to recommend it, aside from how expensive it is, because this is one of those really rare and expensive imports for the Saturn, is it's not very long, like Get All, and that's a damn shame, because this game needs like 1,000,000 levels, because it's just so fun. I like this game. Can we just get 1,000,000 levels and maybe make it an action RPG? Just give me some like stat building and extra weapons and stuff for customizing my mech. That's the only thing that would make this game any better. But the fact is, I went into this game kind of thinking this would be like the perfect Saturn import for me, and it turns out it absolutely was. This game did not disappoint me, and I was so glad, because I'd wanted to play this game for well over a decade at this point. I had heard about this game before I even made this channel, and I had wanted to give it a shot, and the fact is, it is unbelievably good. I have to say that Bulk Slash might be the best import for the Saturn. There's a couple I've played since that have come close, but Bulk Slash for me, kind of perfect as a Saturn import, which makes me even more thankful I got a chance to play it this year. Which would bring me to the end of this list, except I've decided to add one more thing, a special number 0, if you will. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want to feel like I've officially put it on this list. See, I like to run a clean ship here. I have said this numerous times, but I'm a very moral person who likes to do things the right way, which is why I've never reviewed a game I haven't owned in some capacity. However, earlier this year, I did receive a Satiator, this awesome little thing that lets you skip your Saturn hard drive just in case you ever want to not deal with disk rot, which is a thing that affects all CDs, as well as just you know, it apparently is a thing that affects Saturn games a lot more for some reason, just the way they're built, I guess. And because of this, I took advantage of this and decided to use it also for archival and explore the Sega Saturn library I haven't had a chance to get to, which for me personally meant one very specific game. A game that I really want to own, but given how insane price gouging online is, there's a good chance I never will. My most wanted game of all time. We're of course talking about what a lot of people consider to be the holy grail of video game collecting, Panzer Dragoon Saga. And I don't know how to say this without coming across as condescending or like I'm looking down on people, and that's not really what I'm trying to do, but I think a lot of people tend to collect games, or at least rarer games, for the prestige around them, or the monetary value around them, if they ever intend to sell it or whatever, but not for what the game actually is. And I say this because I'm the complete opposite. I don't care if a game costs $1 or $1,000,000,000. I want to play everything, I want to experience everything. That's part of the whole mission statement of this channel, was to, you know, show people all the games ever, whether they've ever heard of it or they don't, and they're just curious. Panzer Dragoon Saga, to me, has always been the perfect game. For me as a person. It was my favorite genre, the RPG, on my favorite console, the Sega Saturn, taking place in my favorite world, the world of Panzer Dragoon. Talking about the original Panzer Dragoon for just a minute, the opening cutscene where your character's walking around this destroyed airship, only to have like this giant monster drop down from the sky and start chasing him off. I, as a human being, as like a 5 or 6 year old kid when this game came out, I wanted to jump into my TV screen and wander around and just explore the world. I wanted to, like, hop off my dragon, which is, you know, the best part of Panzer Dragoon. You know, that's why they named that particular dragon after me. You know, I wanted to hop off that dragon just so I could look around and just explore and experience this world. And in Panzer Dragoon Saga, you can do that because you are wandering around this world, trying to explore it, understand these ruins, and see what's going on. See all the crazy monsters out there that are, like, half technological, half organic, and really just become greater immersed in this world. And unfortunately, there's never been a proper sequel to this game. There's never been another Panzer Dragoon where you can just, you know, wander around and see what's going on and become a citizen of this amazing environment, let alone one where you can customize your dragon and build it based on your own preferences, based on balancing your stats depending on the situation. And this really feels like the most immersive Panzer Dragoon game ever, which makes me really, really sad I don't have a copy because, like I said, I went into this kind of expecting it to be basically the perfect storm of a game for me as a person. I went into this thinking there was never going to be another game that better resonates with me. And playing it with my finicky satiator that takes an hour to boot up every single time, you know, that was an hour well spent just so I could experience this, because it absolutely is the perfect game for me. And it makes me want to get this game even more. The fact is, I don't own Panzer Dragoon Saga, and because of price gouging online and random nonsense that makes it a rare and hard to find game, there's a good chance I never will, not short of it becoming like a wedding present by someone who's got a lot of money or connections or something. But while I might never own this game physically, I will tell you this, it was a magical, almost sort of like religious experience to me. It was a reverent experience where I had to sit with dimmed lights and I was fully immersed, and I sat there and played like the entire first disc in one sitting. It was so enjoyable. This was something truly special and magical to me, and I wanted to include it on this list, even if I technically can't give it an official number because I don't physically own it. The fact is, Panzer Dragoon Saga is a very special, amazing game for me, and just makes me want to own it physically. But this game is truly something special, and it makes me love my dear beloved Sega Saturn even more. And that is my top 10, well, let's be honest, like 13 or so games of 2021. A list of games that I think are awesome and you should play if you get a chance. A lot of them are downloadable indie titles that you should take advantage of that fact, because they are great and affordable and available in a few different places. Definitely on Steam. Go get Zero Ranger, go get Monster Sanctuary for sure. But I have to say, this was a great year for indie games, and I'm looking forward to next year. And I hope you enjoyed. But of course, before you go and enjoy the new year and all the infinite gaming possibilities that come from that, I want to hear what your top 10 games of this year were, and what you thought of my list, and just leave a comment, and you know how all this stuff works. Appease the algorithm so people actually watch my channel, because my channel does not get half as much traffic or subscriptions as it should. Oh, I've been around for a decade and I still haven't cracked 2,000. That's depressing. Feel free to check out the show's PayPal or Patreon to help support me slightly more financially. That's always appreciated. And once again, thank you to everyone who's helped and sent me some games, and sent me games that I could put on this list, because I would have not considered them or would not have been able to otherwise. Seriously. Love you all, and appreciate any and all support I can get, because I certainly need all of it in pretty much all regards. And of course, thank you for just giving me a little bit of your free time and checking this out. But either way, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, subscribe to the show, follow my stream, check me out on social media, do all that good stuff so that I get a better shake at being seen, and so that more people can hear about my awesome lists and videos and stuff, so that more people can know about my awesome videos and stuff. It's a horrible cycle of trying to appease an algorithm just so people get to learn about awesome stuff, because that's what I'm trying to teach people here. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed, I hope you have a wonderful new year, and I hope you get to play some awesome games, and you consider some of the games I talked about here today. And I will see you next time. Peace out, Internet.